This video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your doctor or a qualified healthcare provider regarding any medical condition. You've heard it in movies, you've seen it on TV. A voice comes over the hospital intercom code blue and suddenly everyone starts running. But what is actually happening? What does code blue really mean? And what goes on behind those closed doors that most people never get to see? My name is Nurse Knows, and I am a registered nurse. My advocacy is simple. Every person deserves to understand what is happening inside their own body. Because when you understand your health, you make better decisions. And better decisions save lives. Today I am pulling back the curtain on one of the most intense situations in any hospital, a code blue. What triggers it, who responds, what happens step by step, and what it actually looks like from the perspective of the nurses and doctors inside that room. This is real. This is what we do. First, what does code blue actually mean? A code blue is a hospital emergency announcement that a patient is experiencing cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest. In other words, their heart has stopped, their breathing has stopped, or both. Every hospital has its own code system. Some use colors, some use numbers. But code blue is the most universally recognized term for a life-threatening cardiac or respiratory emergency requiring immediate resuscitation. When a code blue is called, the clock starts, and every second matters. Brain cells begin to die within 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen. The goal of a code blue response is to restore circulation and breathing before irreversible brain damage occurs. This is why the response is immediate, coordinated, and aggressive. So what triggers a code blue? A code blue can be triggered by any healthcare provider, a nurse, a doctor, a technician, even a visitor who finds a patient unresponsive and without a pulse or adequate breathing. In most hospitals, it is called by pressing an emergency button at the bedside, calling a specific number, or activating an overhead announcement system. The moment it is called, a pre-assigned team is notified and begins responding immediately. Who responds to a code blue? This is where most people are surprised. A code blue is not just one doctor running in, it is an entire team, each person with a specific role arriving within minutes. The team typically includes a code leader, usually a senior physician or intensivist, who directs the entire resuscitation, a nurse performing chest compressions, another nurse managing the IV lines and medications, a respiratory therapist managing the airway and ventilation, a pharmacist or medication nurse drawing up and administering drugs, a recorder, often a nurse, documenting every intervention and every timestamp in real time, and additional team members ready to rotate in for compressions, assist with procedures, or bring equipment. In a well-functioning code team, every single person knows exactly what to do the moment they walk through that door. There is no confusion. There is no wasted time. Every role is assigned. Every action is deliberate. Now let's go through what actually happens step by step. Step 1. Confirm the emergency. The first person on the scene confirms the patient is unresponsive, no response to voice, no response to pain, no pulse, no adequate breathing. This takes seconds. Step 2. Start CPR immediately. High-quality chest compressions begin without delay. This means pressing hard and fast in the center of the chest, at least 2 inches deep, at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute. This is physically demanding work. Effective compressions are exhausting, which is why team members rotate every 2 minutes to maintain quality. The goal of compressions is to manually pump the heart-forcing blood to circulate to the brain and vital organs until the heart can be restarted. Step 3. Attach the monitor and defibrillator. While compressions are ongoing, another team member attaches electrode pads to the patient's chest. These pads connect to a monitor that shows the heart rhythm and to a defibrillator that can deliver a shock, if needed. This is critical. Not all cardiac arrest rhythms respond to a shock. The two rhythms that can be shocked, ventricular fibrillation and pulseless ventricular tachycardia, are called shockable rhythms. The team identifies the rhythm immediately and decides whether a shock is indicated. When a shock is indicated, everyone clears away from the patient, no one can be touching the bed or the patient, and the defibrillator delivers a controlled electrical shock designed to reset the heart's electrical system and allow a normal rhythm to resume. Step 4. Secure the airway. While compressions and rhythm analysis are happening, the respiratory therapist or physician works to secure the patient's airway. This may involve placing a bag valve mask over the face to deliver breaths manually, or intubating the patient by passing a breathing tube through the mouth and into the trachea to take full control of ventilation. Step 5. Establish IV access and administer medications. If the patient does not already have IV access, it is established immediately. The most commonly used medication in cardiac arrest is epinephrine adrenaline, given every 3 to 5 minutes throughout the resuscitation. Epinephrine works by constricting blood vessels and increasing the force of compressions, improving blood flow to the heart and brain. Amiodarone may also be given for shockable rhythms that do not respond to repeated shocks. Beyond that, additional medications are given only when a specific reversible cause is identified. For example, calcium gluconate for hyperkalemia or sodium bicarbonate for severe acidosis. The treatment always follows the cause. Step 6. Identify and treat the cause. This is one of the most important parts of the resuscitation and the part most people don't realize is happening simultaneously. While compressions and medications are being given, the code leader is actively trying to figure out why this patient arrested. There is a framework we use called the H's and T's, a list of the most common reversible causes of cardiac arrest. Things like hypovolemia, too little fluid in the body; hypoxia, not enough oxygen; hypothermia, a tension pneumothorax, a collapsed lung trapping air; pulmonary embolism, a clot in the lungs; hyperkalemia, too much potassium; or toxins from medications or overdose. Finding and treating the underlying cause is what gives the patient the best chance of surviving and recovering. Compressions and medications buy time, but reversing the cause is what saves lives. Step 7. Reassess every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, the team pauses compressions briefly to check the rhythm on the monitor and assess for a pulse. If a shockable rhythm is present, shock. If a pulse returns, the code is over and the patient transitions to post-resuscitation care. If there is no pulse and a non-shockable rhythm, compressions resume and the cycle continues. What happens if the code is successful? If the heart restarts, this is called return of spontaneous circulation, or ROSC. The team does not relax. The patient is now in a critical and unstable state. They are typically transferred to the ICU immediately for close monitoring, temperature management, and investigation into what caused the arrest. As a nurse, I can tell you the moments after a successful code are almost as intense as the code itself. The patient is alive, but incredibly fragile. The work is not over. What happens if the code is not successful? This is the hardest part to talk about. If after a prolonged resuscitation effort, there is no return of spontaneous circulation, the code leader makes the decision to stop resuscitation. This decision is never made lightly. It is made when continued efforts are medically futile, when there is no realistic chance of recovery. The room goes quiet, the team steps back, and then, because healthcare workers are human, there is a moment, sometimes brief, sometimes longer, a moment of acknowledgement, of weight, of humanity. Good teams debrief after every code. They talk about what went well, what could be improved, and how each member is doing. Because running a code, especially one that doesn't end the way you hoped, stays with you. I have been in that room. I have done those compressions. I have watched a rhythm come back on that monitor, and I have been in the room when it didn't. This is why health education matters so deeply to me, because prevention, catching the warning signs early, understanding your conditions, knowing when to seek help is always better than resuscitation. A code blue is medicine at its most urgent and most human. And now you know exactly what happens behind those closed doors. If this video gave you a better understanding of what healthcare workers do every single day, please give it a like and share it with someone who has ever wondered the same thing. Subscribe for weekly health education from a registered nurse who genuinely cares. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.